ready for the meeting?
Sure.
Come on up. Come on down. I don't know what
Are we sure? We're sure.
Am I sitting next to you?
Yes. If you'd like, yes.
There is this thing about solely via remote meeting moving forward, and I would agree with that. Just stop it from happening.
Go around.
Do I get a color one? Okay, I'll take it.
You're welcome.
Before I actually let you start, just to try to keep things in some semblance of order, we did have a public hearing scheduled to begin at 1:30, which we.
I would recommend we postpone that.
That's what I would like to have a motion on the record.
I would make a motion that we postpone the public hearing to consider supplemental budget and amendments for 2021 until next week.
Can you do it till next week, or do we have to re-advertise it?
Oh, good question.
Lee?
Things are postponing it. You opened the meeting, did you not? I was out of the room.
We
You need
didn't.
to open
No, I mean, the
hearing.
meeting was never closed.
No, the public hearing. You gotta open the public.
Oh,
hearing,
that's true. I can open the public
Make your
hearing.
announcement and.
Okay.
Actually, I'll do that, and then we can continue. Then we would need to
We wouldn't be
re-advertise.
open until the 30th.
No, it doesn't matter. You just can't, you can have a public hearing after the scheduled time. You just cannot have it
Right.
before. So you can go
As
later.
long as there's no legal jeopardy there.
No, there
No.
shouldn't be.
And
So I
public
will,
Meetings are continued and postponed.
Okay.
so I will open the public hearing to consider a supplemental budget and amendments for the 2021 budget for various funds and departments in the sum of $602,385. And at that, it's a hearing any interested taxpayer may appear or be heard for or against proposed supplemental budget appropriations. And now I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until next Tuesday at 1:30.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we postpone and continue this public hearing on the supplemental budget and amendments until next Tuesday at 1:30.
Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to postpone the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, now, Director King.
Thank you, Jeff, for bearing with us today.
No problem. You're welcome. So yes, good afternoon. I'm here to present the Klickitat County Department of Emergency Management Structure Review Panel's presentation. The Department of Emergency Management Structure Review Panel made up of myself, the Human Resources Director, the Human Resources Manager, DM Union Shop Steward, another Communications Officer, the local union president, and the regional union representative. We met multiple times over the last 3 months. Each of us gathered pertinent information regarding this review and presented it to the panel for discussion in preparation for this presentation and recommendations to you. The information gathered and our discussions have led us to agree that what is needed is a holistic approach to the department's structure and staffing changes to set up the department for long-term success in our mission to provide services to all of our county residents and visitors, local and state law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire districts and departments, and other users across the county to provide for the public safety. In summary, the panel, after looking into different structures and staffing models for not only 911 dispatch, supervisory staff, proper communications officer shift coverage, but also emergency management program and support staffing, Panel is recommending a hybrid of the original new Department of Emergency Management structure recommendation that was provided in 2011 by the Public Safety Advisory Board, appointed by the Board of Commissioners, and the current jail structure and staffing model. Budget estimates indicate that this new structure and staffing recommendation will be offset by savings in overtime due to less extra shift coverage for vacations and other leave, continued training of the communications officers, training of new hires, and the cost of the hiring process. The factors that were considered by the panel, the history of the DEM structure, as I mentioned before, the original recommendation and what was done and what the department has continued in for the last 9 years. Review of comparable agency structures, including 3 primary functions of KC DEM, which is 911 dispatch, public safety radio system, operation and maintenance, and the emergency management program, or that equivalent with multiple staff on duty. So finding comparables for our department was a bit of a challenge because it entails those 3 primary functions, and don't find that, but we did our best to find agencies that were similar, as well as agencies that had both functions under the same, at least under the same agency, but maybe under different management.
I can step in with a question.
Yes.
You know me, I never like to wait till the end. Would the promoting one supervisor and promoting one communications officer allow them to cover overtime and not stick it all on lower level staff?
You jump right to our recommendations. Yes, sir.
Oh, did I move on too fast for you?
No, not too fast for me at all. Yes, if you look at the second bullet under the 3rd bullet point, both of those positions will be required to be able to perform the duties of the communications officer, as well as the chief of operations. So all personnel under the 911 dispatch function from the chief of ops down would be required to be able to perform, be certified and qualified to perform the duties of the communications
And
officer.
I'm holding it to you to make sure they step in there and alleviate some of that overtime pressure.
Yes, sir. Anything else before I go back to where I left off?
You're good. sir.
That's okay. Yep. I'm
Have a
here.
rough day.
No, I understand completely. I'm here to give you the information that you need to make the decision that you have to make. Okay, next bullet point, top of the 2nd page. DM's ability, the other consideration by the panel was DM's ability to maintain staffing for 911 call taking, emergency radio dispatching, and emergency management program activities properly provide for public safety, which includes the day-to-day 911 call taking and dispatching, as well as the emergent response for major emergencies under the emergency management programs. Another factor was the growth of the county, which included increase in the 911 call volume, but more importantly, the increase in individual 911 call severity and the length of time spent on each call. That more than the number of calls we get right now, the severity of those calls, domestic violence and mental health calls, and the length of time that it takes to work through individual calls of those natures is ever increasing, more complex, and more of a mental and psychological impact to our staff. Also considered was the increase in frequency and severity of the natural and man-made disasters for the EM program, as the last several years of wildfires and then the pandemic have shown us. Also, the increase in state and federally mandated requirements for 911 call taking and the emergency management program. The legal court paperwork, data entry and tracking performed by the communications officers which was transferred from the sheriff's office to the Department of Emergency Management because it required a 24/7, 365 staffing to be available to have access and deal with that paperwork. And the next consideration was retention issues related to overtime, overtasking, and other employment opportunities, which leads to the perpetual cycle of burnout and staff replacement, which adds to the overtime. And it's just a vicious cycle. The recommendations of the panel are as follows. Addition of 3 new FTE to 911 dispatch function. And we'll look at the org chart here in a second. Promoting 1 communications officer to a communications supervisor. Promoting another communications officer to a lead communications officer. We already have 1. And like I mentioned before, both of those positions, as well as the chief of ops, would be required to perform the duties of communications officer. And hire 3 new entry-level communications officers to round out that staffing. The emergency management program coordinator's position be increased from half FTE to 0.75 FTE. And the increase in those wages and benefits, we've learned over the last several months, having this 0.5 FTE, that there is room in the grants that we currently have to allow for that additional 3/4 time to be covered in grant reimbursements. What you have next in your packet is the current org chart. Shows our structure now. All the FTE. To the left of the director's, or excuse me, the right of the director's position is the 3 boxes for the contractors that I manage and oversee in the public safety radio system. And it flows down from there. 9 communications officers, 2 casuals, which needed to point out that those 2 casuals are budgeted as 1 FTE. So we split those 2 positions. That's what HR and myself worked out that was the best way to manage that. Then 1 lead communications officer and a chief of operations. And the emergency management program coordinator at halftime, and the account administrative assistant at 1 FTE. The next sheet is the recommendation that was presented to the board in 2011 by the Public Safety Advisory Board, I believe it was called. The numbers in red. Well, first I'll say the numbers in black is what existed under the sheriff's office. Looking at the left side, lower part of that org chart, under the sheriff's office management. And then what the advisory board recommended is in red. Which under that recommendation, there's a total of 14 personnel under the just communications officers underneath the chief of operations, what we call now, what they list here as a dispatch manager, which is exactly what the next sheet shows you is the structure review panel's recommendation for an org chart. Shows 10 communications officers, 2 lead communications officers, and a communications supervisor, which is a total of 3 bodies. The plan there, because of the way these things work, would be promoting 1 communications officer to a second lead. We already have the 1 lead. Promote 1 more lead. Promote 1 to a supervisor, and then you would be hiring 3 new personnel at the entry level step 1 communications officer's position. Then up in the upper left is the Emergency Management Program Coordinator, increased to 0.75 FTE. Next is what I found very interesting, and I won't get into the details unless we need to, but it's a series of actual schedules and sample schedules. First one, and this is for the last 3 months of this year. June's actual schedule, and we went back and looked at it. The boxes that are in red in the field there, across the top, those are the days that we did overtime shifts for coverage. And the boxes in the field, if you look up to the upper left-hand corner, there are a total of 22 overtime shifts for the month of June under the staffing that we have now. And if we had the staffing and structure that we're recommending, June's schedule would have been 0 overtime shifts for coverage.
See, now, did you bring the dollar amount for the 22 days?
He always likes to jump to the last page. Yep, so that was from 22 to 0 in June. July
To
is,
hold my horses, huh?
it's okay. I'm with you, man. July, total of 16 overtime coverage shifts. In the recommended structure, it would equal 0 again. And you can see, like I said, we've sanitized this, no names, it's just by position. So the supervisor working on a 4-10 schedule gives them that flexibility to see everyone throughout the week, because we work, remember, you can see here, they work a combination of communications shifts, 3 days on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off, 2 on, and so on. And they work from 6 a.m. to midnight, or excuse me, 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. 12-hour shifts, 6 to 6, sorry. So if somebody's not there at shift change, then you're not getting to see all your people. The ones that would be on night shifts, you wouldn't see them typically. Schedule is in its normal format for 2 months. If you didn't stay until after 6 in the evening, or get there before 6 in the morning. So this schedule is designed so that not only supervisor would be able to see everyone, but both leads would then be shift supervisors for half of each day. They would see everyone for 6 hours a day for each shift on 2 different teams. August, this just last month, is 28 overtime shifts coverage. And that again went to 0 by using the leads and the supervisors to cover those shifts. And now the last page, Commissioner Christopher, this shows you.
So I didn't get to.
Oh, yeah, don't do that to me now. Yeah, so on the left-hand side, you can see the actuals and overtime coverage shifts in dollar amounts for June, July, and August. That 3-month total, $38,402. If you project that out for a year in this staffing condition, that's a total of $153,609 in overtime.
Is that projected, or did you go back for the last year to see all?
No, that's a projection as to what we're doing right now. The actuals over the last 3 years.
Can you
Or
go
3
back,
months.
can you go to the actuals over the last year and get that?
Good. Yes, we
That would
could.
be a far more, you know,
Okay.
true number.
Right, yep. And so the other half of this spreadsheet shows, the cost of promoting 2 people and hiring 3 more for a total. And then with the offset and overtime, as we are currently spending it, would be that $58,788 would be the actual increase at this time. Knowing full well that fluctuates, but this is a snapshot of where we are right now, what we are currently paying for overtime. Because of, like I said, the current staffing and structure that we have. And in the future, if this recommendation is accepted and put into place, that's going to take a year, maybe a year and a half to be fully realized as well, between the hiring and training process. Because we're already down 2 people, soon to be 3, So,
I would assume that if we did this, then that would free up your schedule some to where you can actually have time to work on and finish the potential new funding source.
yes, sir.
Is your chief of operations 911 coordinator going to be qualified to step in an emergency to take over? Is that part of what you wrote in the?
For, yeah, both for call taking and dispatching, yes. And then be also trained to take over management operation of the radio system, as well as emergency management program activities to support the coordinator. That is the goal, yes. Someone that if I am not here can truly manage the department in a way that, you know, will get us through anything. So I can actually have a day off, any day off.
No days off.
Yes, sir.
Get over it.
So I went through that pretty quickly because I anticipate some questions. I mean, today's already been a day. I hope it wasn't too fast. I'll wait to,
I would be interested in, 3 months is a really good snapshot, but it would be good to look back a year, the full year. And I know, because that's going to be a really accurate number then, because it shows, because I don't, I don't know, maybe you can just answer part of it too, is, was June, July, and August,
it's indicative.
comparable throughout? I mean, I know but that's kind of the high season as far as vacations, and so they're generally, I bet if I look, I don't know, but I'm guessing that our overtime traditionally has a higher spike in the summer than the rest of the time. So I don't know. It'd be interesting what the numbers would be, so that we're actually looking at real.
Yes.
So we can see that.
And if you could actually go back 2 years, it would do it in 2 year and a full year snapshot, because we know 2020 is coming.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know that your operations were any different because of,
Yeah,
I
because
mean, it's 24/7.
Yeah. it,
Pandemic, we don't
It was
care.
a-
We still got to answer the phone.
it was
Pretty much.
affected in
Yeah.
different ways.
Asteroid strike, doesn't matter. Answer the phone.
I would
It was
say
actually
that our
pretty cold
schedule was,
today, so that's okay.
I would say our schedule was affected in different ways. But keep in mind that the communications officers have seniority bidding for their primary vacations that is done coming up real soon in the fall for the whole next year. So people have their times, and I would say there are maybe a couple of months in the year that there are less vacations taken. But to allow people to have their time off,
Well, safe regard, there might have been less during COVID and we're gonna have more
Yeah.
next year
no,
because
so
people didn't take them.
in the seniority bids, I don't remember anybody giving any vacation time back unless it was needed for emergency staff.
Do you have a lot of vacation holdovers? I guess my question.
Yes, they build it quickly.
So we
I
can
wanna be able to
anticipate a lot
give
of
it to
getting used next year.
I want to give them all the vacation they have earned,
Right.
definitely. And right now, we can't.
I don't know that going back a year or 2 years is going to change my vote on this, but I do think it would be a wise decision just so we can have our financing going forward, forecast the best number that we could possibly get, so.
Yeah, that's just to show the offset in the overtime savings. Right? The actual budget will be what we're expending for the 3 new hires and the 2 promotions. But at least a certain percent of that overtime, and I will say that it's going to be a significant percentage of that overtime will be eliminated because of the staffing that we have.
And then,
Once we become fully staffed and fully trained.
stupid question, but no, it was a stupid question. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna read the gentleman today. The question you don't get.
And part of the issue is that we are so minimally staffed to run a 24/7 operation with 2 people on, that anytime we have a vacancy and with the hiring process and the training lead time that it takes, you're looking anywhere from 4 to 7 months to get someone hired and to get them trained and put in as an actual partner. That we're in this perpetual loop of people burning out because they're working overtime and then having an opening, and whether they're burning out or just taking, one thing that I found interesting looking back at the data was that for at least the last 3 years, nobody has resigned as a communications officer here and gone to another agency to be a communications officer. They've gone into other careers, mostly Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So, they're burning out on this, and then that causes who's left to be overtaxed more, and it just keeps feeding on itself. And with 2 or 3 more people, then you can break that cycle. You can have those people in training and still have 1 or 2 open slots and still have enough people to cover the schedule without making everybody work excessive overtime.
And another thing we've noticed just in the past year, about 2 years, is the severity of the calls, like Jeff has already said. Right now, as you guys had seen when you guys came up and did that brief tour, is if somebody's on a 911, your partner has to fill in and page and get people going. But right now, with as much stuff as going on in our world and our community, you were taking 2 people who are just jammed on the phone constantly and trying to call somebody in during an event. We don't have the time to do that. So when you get somebody in afterwards, everything's done. All of the calls are gone. For fire calls, your initial 30 minutes to an hour, you're taking 50 to 100 calls. And if you get somebody in, sometimes they're 20 to 30 minutes delayed because they have to get ready, then they're dragged to work. By then, it's done.
The situation is stabilized, yeah.
Correct. So in the schedule that we had provided, and the sample schedule is you would have another person there on a swing shift, as well as your lead could step in and help with answering phone calls. You don't have to have that wait time to have somebody come in. They could help with that 50 phone calls all at once and trying to weed through, do you have an emergency or are you reporting this? We had a fire a couple weeks ago and it was, fire call, and then just kidding, here's a medical call. So then we have to get pulled away from that when there's another event going on.
Carmen, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to voice my support for the restructure. Dispatchers are the vital backbone of the emergency management services provided in this county. I know firsthand how stressed they are. I have a daughter who's a dispatcher.
I'm sorry.
I also sorry, sometimes too. It's okay.
Just like I can't take him.
But as a person who I have a radio beside, my bed every night listening,
We
this
could get
county
into
is seeing
that.
more and more medical calls.
Yeah, I'm not home doing that.
Our ambulance crews, sometimes we have 3 ambulances out at the same time. So not only are they doing maybe 3 or 4 major medicals, they're doing fire and all the non-911 calls that are coming in. The number of citizens is going to start increasing. The number of lands bought in this county is increasing. There's all these factors. Look at the amount of visitors that come in. It's not just our residents who use our emergency services. It's our visitors. It's the tourists that come in who require and want help when they call 911. These guys are absolutely drained by the end of a shift, and any help that we could be to them is absolutely detrimental to the future of this county.
Another thing that I don't know if you guys were aware of, or if it was spoken about when you guys were up for that little tour, was the calls on 84. So we filter numerous calls in Oregon because the cell towers are on the Washington side. If there's an accident, if there is the road's closed, or there's a rock or a deer, for heaven forbid, in the road, we have to filter all of those calls. And then if we see that there's a fire in one county, we will only transfer 1 or 2, but then we're answering all of their overflow. So we're doing all of that for them so they don't get overwhelmed. That's another thing that takes sometimes you need 3 people just to do that.
And this schedule, if I might, is designed so that they're, like I said, that the leads are on a late swing, which puts them in the busiest times of the day for that 12 hours. So that they're there to be a shift supervisor. And keep in mind, we've used a lot of the experience that the sheriff's office gained through trial and error of staffing the jail. This is almost identical to the jail structure for corporals and sergeants and the chief, with the exception that instead of having a corporal on each full day shift and full night shift for 2 teams, we think it will be sufficient to have what we call a lead, they call it corporal, in that late swing that spans the 6 hours that is the busiest, highest call volume for the day. And only be there for 12 hours out of a 24-hour day. But it provides for that, as well as having that shift, that supervisor there on that 410 that spans both and can get a lot of the things, which it's hard to articulate how much has to get done behind the scenes to keep all of these systems functioning so that we can answer the 911 calls and put out the radio traffic and record all the data in the CAD system and so on. Commissioner Anderson, you have any questions?
So I know what these communications officers get paid. And I know that the overtime is what makes you bump up to that truly living wage. How is all the communications officers on board with having no overtime?
We did not, the panel did not address that.
Because I think that's really
I
important.
spoke with, so I am the shop steward for the union. So I have spoken to a lot of our communications officers, and a lot of them right now, yeah, they rely on the overtime. You know, some of them do. Granted, I'm one of them. I like the money. But a lot of it right now is we need a time off. Yes, this will, we won't say eliminate the overtime, but it will significantly decrease it. And I think that's what we're looking at, is just having that time off, not worrying about, okay, it's my day off. Do I stay in our county I might get called in, or do I actually go and actually have a day off or a vacation?
Or given the current circumstance, it's hard to cut in, but that's a valid point, is they often, at least the best among them, will take that into consideration. Today's schedule with our staffing, who's out on vacation, who's sick, isn't responsible for me as the next likely person to have to come in and cover to actually go out of town. That's how dedicated they are. And it comes down, in my opinion, to a quality of life, right? At some point, the money does not equal the quality of life.
And that's like, right now, I think that's where all of dispatch is at, is we've all put in a significant amount of overtime the past few months that we're all just, we need a life outside of work. Our quality of life to even just take a break and then come to do our best while we're at work is what we need. Especially with the calls being more stressful, when you have a stressful home life and constantly working, not sleeping to hang out with your family because we work very odd shifts. And then coming into work and dealing with somebody else's crisis, that's a lot of stress on 2 people. And you see your coworkers and your partners more than you see your family. So we've all had to take in that consideration, where now we're putting all of our home stress and our work stress on our partner. And then that's just, our quality of life just really isn't there.
I guess I'll go
I was
first.
I was just handing some from KC about the OT totals. So year to date for 2021, she pulled, that is actually, today, September 14th, $98,142. Keep in mind that includes a certain amount of overtime that is monthly. I think it runs in the $6,000 range, but that's the year-to-date total. It's nearly $100,000.
With 5 more months to go.
Correct.
I think it's also important to realize the amount of duties that Jeff has to accomplish during the time he's at work. I don't know if you guys have been into his office and see all the different things he has to do for his own job on top of that.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire? You had me at hello. You had me at hello. I'm a yes, gentlemen. Want to ask more questions, feel free. But I'm a yes.
How many positions during these 3 months did you have not filled? Versus in? Versus,
1 and 2. So June week was 1 for the full month, I believe it was. And then you also have to consider the, like I said, the vacations. We do our best by contract. We're supposed to do our best to get 2 people vacation time at the same time. That's part of the reason my emergency declaration started today for staffing. And then, folks that are out for medical procedures, surgeries and so on. But in June, I believe it was 1 for all or most of the month. July, there was 2 that overlapped, and then we filled that pretty quickly. And then August, there's 2, and it continues to be 2 because we have one that was their last night was their last shift. And then Monday, we started the 1 person in training. So right now we're down 2.
okay, and the average dispatcher works 15 days a month, correct?
In a normal schedule, they'll work 15 days a month, yes.
Okay, and so if I'm looking at this, we're down 1 staffer for June, right? June was 1. So if I took 15 days of overtime, removed that, now we're down to 7 shifts.
Okay.
And in July, we had 2 and we had 16. So you minus 32 or 30 off of that. Open positions. And thus you've got a training, you've got people that are not taking vacation. You get 2 weeks of vacation a year. I would be hard pressed if you had 3 more positions, which would be the equivalent of 45 shifts a month. in essence. When you're working on 22 shifts a month of overtime, and I would like that averaged over the month. Because as you know, we know that it goes certain ways. I think that was the whole position of casual employees, correct? So that they can fill in when other people are doing, somebody who wants to help and be there.
They can only work a limited amount of hours.
And they can only work a limited amount of hours, but you have, multiple positions that are potentially available. I'm just trying to, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you don't have the hardest working employees. I'm not saying that they all definitely deserve their time off. I'm just trying to work the numbers out because, as you know, we have a very big budget deficit. And I'm trying to truly understand what we have to provide, what we need to provide, and what we'd like to provide, and how we're going to keep it. I know that the position is always going to be rolling over, just because the same thing in the jail. It's a difficult life when you're working nights and then you're going from nights and you got family and everything else. It's very hard. You're always going to have that turnover. That's always a part of life. I just need to know, based on the numbers, what's the best thing for the county in total. And so that's why I need those actual numbers so that we can make those really tough choices. Because remember, if I hire 3 of you, I'm going to have to let somebody else go.
That's why my only regret in this process is that I didn't push the issue 4 years ago.
I heard you pushing it pretty hard 4 years ago, so.
Now is one of the least, favorable times to bringing this to you, but I can in good conscience continue to go on, just making do with what I've got. So, I'm here to give you the facts. You want 2 more years, the last 2 years actuals, overtime?
Yeah.
Definitely, we can provide that. And I want to just clarify though, that the casual positions, and maybe KC can help me with this, but them in casual and the state rules for DRS and so on, and how many hours you can work on. It was having those 2 casual positions was twofold. One is to have somebody in training, and we do our best to put them in full-time training, even if they want to be a casual, but we can work them for 5 months full-time before we have to cut off according to state rules. And then that box, correct me if I'm wrong, right? That box then has to wait for a certain amount of time before you can, use them again. If you go over that threshold of more than 70 hours or whatever it is in a month for 5 months straight. On top of, so that was a training tool to get the next person trained up and ready for when the open hole comes. So like now we know we've got somebody else leaving at the end of December for a retirement, but we've already used up all our time and budget in the casual positions, both in training, because of turnover, we had to train 2 people. And then the 1 casual we still have is because one of those casual positions is now open, is working, filling shifts as well. So it was a dual fold, training tool and have somebody that could fill shifts as needed and be more flexible. That part of it has been a really hard sell. Is getting an actual casual that was just willing and able to fill shifts on an as needed basis. Nobody's actually panned out for very long in that position. They either, and which is the good part, they either promote up to full time or they just go find something else to do. Yeah, but I will get you the 2 years.
So I assume it's reasonable to assume that part of the factor of the heavy turnover in the department. I mean, one thing, you do a terrible job. I mean, it's really hard.
Appreciate that.
It is. I understand that. I think it's reasonable that part of the heavy turnover is just the workload and the burnout and sometimes we don't. I think sometimes we don't give enough weight to the cost of training, of getting people up to speed, of all of that, that we think of it as just, kind of raw bodies. It's like, if everything's full, but it really is, it costs a lot of money to get somebody trained. That's why it's important to retain people, because we've made this huge investment in people and then they pull their hair out and they leave and we lose all that investment. So I'm really interested. I want to understand are we more than fixing the problem with this proposal? And then frankly, that which is not the part of it that's not anything to do with you folks, is how do we pay for it? That's our job, to figure out how to pay for it. As far as because we are, without some change, we're going to have to take it from somewhere else and put it there. And it would be that we have to reprioritize what we're currently spending money on. And that's, that can be done. That's not, but it's not painless. It's always easy to make decisions when nobody cares because nobody gets hurt, so to speak. So,
and to kind of expand on your point, when we're training someone, that 5 to 6 months of training, we're paying that person full time. We're paying a trainer to train them, as well as we're filling the open shift right now because we don't have enough depth in our staffing, not to have to fill those shifts.
I'm just trying to have an honest appraisal with myself about, it's not as simple as, because I don't believe if we hired 3 new FTE, the overtime's not just going to go away. It will come down significantly, but let's have our eyes open that we're not going to see the full benefit of that. It just never worked. We've been through this in the jail. We've been through it, and it's really helped once we saw, there was issues way back with road deputies and what our wages were. We had huge turnover all the time. We don't have that anymore. We fixed that problem, and it was principally, compensating people so that they wanted to stick around, and we were not a revolving door. And I believe we've saved a bunch of money because of that. But we didn't save enough to pay for what we had to do, but we paid for a good portion of it. So I'm just saying that I want to
That's
be
why-
realistic about what the costs are, and I want to be sure. I want to be sure, so I know what my real number is that I'm really working on, as far as not.
And I
Because
don't-
you come in here, it's like, oh, well, for an extra 58, well, I could probably find $58,000. It's not $58,000.
Yeah,
It's not 202, but it's not 58 either.
and I hope I didn't make that inference or try and, come across that way. That's not, I'm just saying that this is the last 3 months actually.
Right.
Real-time data. And yes, and what I said in my summary was that this will significantly reduce, right? It's not gonna reduce all of our overtime, no. And because I believe, just as we are now, and maybe I came into this position foolish, and a dreamer, but I believe at a certain point, we could become fully staffed, fully trained. And
Okay, that was my next question.
yeah,
Is it possible?
it has been possible, I think 6 months in 2019, 6 or 7 months, and a few months into 2020. It's happened for short periods of time over the almost 7 years I've been doing this, but it's not gonna be a normal situation. It's not gonna be our status quo. So with the number of people we got, we just keep hurting the people that are left behind, right? If that makes sense. We're always gonna have staffing turnover and retraining or training issues. Yeah, and so if we have enough people to fill a schedule without having to work excessive overtime, we're always gonna have 1 or 2 people in the training pipeline. That's my 7 years has taught me that.
So then if you could go back to that 2019 and see what that ship looked like when we were fully staffed, and being able to see that would help us a lot. And then on here, if you would just put on here how many open positions there were that month and when,
Okay.
and then we can see that difference. That's what we need in order to make the decision.
Anything else?
Thanks for all the work.
Bring more money. I think I said that earlier though.
I just brought you like 33,000 or some dollar, 38,000 this morning. I'm trying to leave it positive.
buddy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, David.
Okay. Thank you. And
Okay, no, we will.
so next steps, do you want me to get this information and set a new time? Or give that to you in a document?
As always, try to get it to me ahead of schedule. And then I can have the right.
I apologize.
All right.
Because
No, it's been a day.
it's been a couple of weeks, yes.
It's okay. It's been a year or a couple of years.
About 18 months. I can tell you exactly.
Yeah.
Any
So,
other guidance from Mr. Jeff besides bring back more numbers?
I can say realistically that the implementation, if there was a change, is not going to take place until after we get through this budget process. I mean, it's September. Now, that doesn't mean, depending on what the board decides, because again, you have open positions right now. And it may make a difference to, if there's a policy change on the part of the board prior to implementation, if the board commits to something, that may help with morale, with, so I'm not saying, oh, we're not even going to talk about it till January. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's highly unlikely, it seems to me, that we would take this information, make a thing, and then implement it next month. Because we're implementing, meaning go out and hire fill those holes you already got and go hire 3 new people. I don't see that happening because I think, and I don't think you could. Frankly, if I gave you a briefcase full of cash today,
I would be happy to address your line of thought there. If the board would approve whatever this recommendation or any version of it. Because the original recommendation when this department was formed in 2011, you know, there was something lesser that was approved.
Right.
But this is what's going to set us up for long-term success.
Right.
As a department, as a county that needs to provide for 911 call taking and dispatching, as well as emergency management programs. If you gave approval that effective January 1, we could start with the new org chart, whatever that takes, right? That is reasonable and I mean, that's what I would expect, I guess I'll say. I didn't have any, fantasies that you would,
no.
we'd walk out here today and
Woohoo! Go,
KC, post them jobs.
post them.
Right.
Right.
To get us through the current emergency staffing issues that we're facing, I've been considering coming to the board with a request, or I guess a question that if we could be allowed to come with a budget supplemental request that included additional wages and benefits, because we know the rarity is that we know months in advance we got somebody retiring at the end of December, right? I'm not, because we spent this much overtime, right? I'm not, we're gonna have to get a supplemental anyway to cover the wages and benefits for this year. If I could get enough to hire somebody as soon as I could and get them started in training. So I don't have to start the hiring process Jan 1 when it's vacant and count on next year's budget. And then 1 or 2 months for the process, then 5 to 6 months for the training. And I'm well into next year before that hole gets filled again. And frankly, with the hiring and training process, there's no way with that lag time that we'll be fully staffed after middle half of next year. We'll be in the 3rd quarter of next year before we can get fully staffed and fully trained.
So what would it take to do that? I'm thinking.
What I was
is
trying to do with the casual-
what you talked to us about this morning. So you brought additional, where we have revenues over budget for 135.
Correct, yes.
Is that adequate would that be enough of an offset to be able to go ahead and start trying to fill the position for the vacancy ahead of time that we know?
Yeah, so if
I'm asking you to go back and crunch that and see, because that makes it easier, because I'm not actually having to come up with any additional, it's money that I wasn't planning on, that I already
it
have.
was unexpected
I'd love to
revenue.
spend it. I
Unexpected-
can't
unexpected
spend
revenue.
it out of 135, but we put other money to fund that, and maybe we didn't have to put it in as much, but I'm willing to at least entertain, because I think it's reasonable, given the critical nature of your staff shortages, that you have, like, in a sense, it's a gift where in advance somebody's retiring. And that doesn't mean then if you have to wait until they actually walk out the door before you can start recruiting to replace them, there's a gap that now it just makes it even that much worse. And so if you can start early.
So
On the same regard, I would actually, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was done right
Well, I thought he was gonna say something.
your question was at the beginning, I believe,
Yes.
you know, what would make it work?
Right.
So in my estimation, the open position we have right now, because we just hired one, she's in training. I'm very hopeful that's gonna work out. We've got one open position right now. We know we got another one coming. So in this round of hiring, if I could hire 2 or 3 in that and get them started in training, because there's also washout.
Before we get that, remind me, you have one open position.
That's
that You're
correct.
gonna be hiring for. You have another coming. So that's 2.
Yep.
So hiring for 3 without a new.
My casual position,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So like, because that's the
So
other
don't,
thing.
don't try to sneak in.
No, no, no.
Oh, you have inadvertently
If I can-
already authorized what.
So if I can hire 3
I've
people.
been fooled before, not by you.
But so there's economy of scale, right? Because if I hire one now and I put them in training, and then there's a certain amount of classroom training and so on, and then I hire another one, February or whenever I can get one hired after the retirement, then there's duplication, right? If I can put 2 people or 3 people in training at the same time, there's economy of scale there. And I guarantee you, 1 out of 2, I've seen it over and over again. Sometimes it's our second choice that comes through. Like some people I know, first choice washed out of training. Second choice was a casual. To her credit, she stuck with us, and shortly she was the full timer. But we start 2 or 3 in training, and at least 1 out of the 3 is going to wash out. That's what would help, and that would get us months ahead. When that next vacancy comes up in January, we would be that far ahead in the training process. So we would only have, a few more months, 1 or 2 more.
Okay,
months.
crunch some numbers and what would it take to do that?
I guess I'm kind of also looking at, with this morning's presentation about historical REIT numbers coming back larger, I'm automatically adding that into the number you just presented, so it made that number smaller to me or offset that number because I never thought I was taking that away from it.
Yeah, I don't want to,
I was, let's be.
Roll it into the new
Yeah.
thing, but how are we gonna get there?
I don't want to be foolish enough to think that level
Right,
of REIT
but that
revenue
is
is
the-
gonna
right.
sustain, yeah.
Right.
But it gives us some breathing room to figure out a long-term sustainable revenue. That's the other project I got, I'm supposed to be working on.
But go ahead.
Okay, a couple other things I want to know. You said, what do I want to know? I want to know what's your average length that people are staying right now over the last few years.
Okay.
Okay, because if my average length of people staying is 2 to 3 years, but it takes 6 months to train them, 5 to 6 months, I need to know that.
Yep.
I need to know what percentage washout over the last few training sessions, so that we can make these decisions, so that we can get to fully, at all times. And then if I know what the average length of people just burn out, whether you're fully staffed or not. I mean, you're always gonna have burn.
A clarifying question though, first you said washout, then you said burnout. So washout is in the training process or burnout after?
Percentage of people, or what percentage of people are washing out
Of
in the
training.
process.
Okay. Yep.
And then I need to know, what is the average length of stay
Right.
for our poor inmates in that position?
I wanted to say that the job is very rewarding too. I mean,
Yeah.
when you.
Well, of
say
course, you get to work
live-
with you.
I'm gonna pay for that comment. Thank you, sir. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so that's 2 things that I need to be able to see on that graph, so that I can figure how truly long, how often we should be expecting. With an economies, with statistics, you should be able to figure it out and average things out, so that we know exactly where we need to be. Because you're always gonna have an open position. You just always do. So if we've got to have the box for her to have it there, knowing that it's probably never going to be fully staffed. But we need to take that overtime and reduce it. Now, I don't know if I can ask or whatnot, but the other thing is I don't want people to quit because they're not getting an overtime hours. So they went to go work at a solar farm or something else because they can make more money. So I need to know that level too. Because we're all thinking about going to the solar farm.
We're thinking.
Let's hold hands and all go together.
Yeah, that's all.
With the younger appointee.
This is too important for anybody to give up on. Definitely. That's why I'm still here.
Right.
Yep. I'm in it for the long haul. It might kill me, but I'm not.
Well, I'm glad you are, because we might be going to the solar farm.
Jeff.
Or the funny part. It could be the funny part.
Yeah, there's that.
We should move forward so we can continue.
Yep.
getting our-
Yeah.
But that's what I need to know.
Those 2 things.
Yep.
And I've been taking notes as way I can. I know how much you like email. If you have any specifics like that,
Oh, no, if I
document it, email it to me, that'd be awesome. I'll try, and I hear
Email
clicking
or
of the pen in the back room, so Casey has been helping me, I'm sure. Document what I need to bring back to
She's
you.
shaking her head no.
I know. She's awesome. If I could recruit her from Rob, wouldn't he be upset, but boy. Okay,
So they'll need your phone numbers, because if they don't have somebody show up, they're gonna call you to dispatch, just so you know.
Tell me, I was sold it alone.
Thank you.
poor citizens. They don't want me pulling shifts.
Yeah, tell the guys that were sold it alone.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time and being engaged even after your last session.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't have a part of time for citizen comments for the people that were on. Can we put that at the end? If anybody, I mean, we only have 17 people right now. But I think we'll work that
You want
out.
to just roll through some of this, sir?
Yeah, get it done.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
I will second the motion.
Oh, yeah, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. Okay, I have a motion and a second on the business agenda, such as it is. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for August 24th, 2021 and August 31st, 2021 as presented.
Second the motion. And you got your comments on the minutes.
I have a motion and a second on the August 24th and August 31st meeting minutes. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with all 5 items.
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pay estimate number 17 to Kirby Nagelhaus Construction Company in the amount of $1,137,492.43, which excludes retainage in the amount of $55,925.84 and includes sales tax for the total payment amount of $1,166,878.53 for the county services building contract number C03120.
I will second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on pay estimate number 17 to Kirby Nagelhaus. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pay estimate to Stripe Rate Incorporated in the amount of $35,453.03, excluding $1,772.65 in retainage, for a total payment amount of $33,680.38 for the 2021 annual striping program.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second on pay estimate, final pay estimate Stripe Rite. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
All right,
Aye, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pay estimate, final pay estimate to striping in the amount of $88,006.40 for the countywide edge lines.
I will second the motion with the statement that hereby you are no longer named Bumble.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $1,419,762.95 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $820,163.06 for the date ending September 13th, 2021.
I will second that motion as well.
Okay, a motion and a second to pay the bills. Any discussion?
Others, I need to drink water, but go ahead.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
You guys do the consent.
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you.
I see the treasurer is on. I don't know. If Greg, if you're listening, you can head on down. For leisure.
Anybody interested in going over some other fun things? Quick.
Yeah. Sure. Go ahead, board pending.
Take one down, pass it around. The official, and the other one isn't the official. Got an email from Danny Stone who's the commissioner in Grant County. Tom Dent, 13 Legislative District, wrote this letter with the help of Representative Schmidt. And it's 1 page and 2 page. It's the same thing, I believe. They just, I had,
one's on.
yeah, I had her print the
Oh, okay.
original.
Is it changed or is it the same word?
No, it's the
letter.
same. You can see this one's on there, state
There,
legislator
legislator.
letter.
It's just reformatted correctly.
So I had it print straight out of the email from them. Anyway, Representative Schmidt helped them draft it, and Senator Warnick also assisted in putting the document together. They hope to get this before the governor by September 20th. If we can do this, we could, if we chose to do this as one or all, we could then have this emailed to the Honorable Mr. Dent. And the legislature can present it. They're hoping to get sheriffs, prosecutors, and county commissioners from all over the state.
Okay, first thoughts on it, because I read it a little bit earlier. Are you really expecting and requesting an in-person meeting with Governor Inslee, and do you think there's any reason to include that? I understand what Tom Dent and Judy Warnick sent, and they play with that all the time, but should that be included or not?
I have no problem citing the document as presented, even though I don't think it will make a difference in anything. I don't think you're getting a phone call either, let alone a personal meeting, but I can still request one. Again, it's not my document. Their original plan, I believe, was to have their document and just add a signature sheet to it. This says by Mr. Danny Stone. I told Representative Dent that we Grant County commissioners could sign a signature sheet and we could send it to him as a PDF. He thought that would work. So now it kind of has our county letterhead on it, but I don't care if we send the county one or sign his one. And I didn't find much adverse comments in there. So
You finished reading it, Dave?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I'm gonna step away for just a second, run down the hall, so I can actually concentrate.
that's not a bad decision.
And
that a-
talk about other, no, we're not recessed, you're here.
Well, I can use the
You
bathroom.
can all
break,
use
too.
it too.
Yeah, let's, Vice Chair, how about you recess?
We'll recess for 5 minutes.
Not to discuss this, but it's gonna be very different 5 hours.
We'll do some handshake.
Oh, that's, Greg is coming down.
Is it pause?
No, great idea. Thank you.
That's built for speed.
What was the deadline they were hoping for?
They hope to send this to the governor by September 20th, which I believe is next Monday.
Letter actually states looks like they're requesting a response from the governor by the 20th.
Yeah, but it also, that's what it said in my. Can you please speak with your fellow commissioners to consider as a group or maybe individuals signing as well? Representative Schmick and Senator Warnick, Assistant Appointed Dr. Yoder. He hopes this to send this to Governor by September 20th. Your response can go directly to him.
Mr. Treasurer.
Commissioners, postpone that.
Yeah, well, I'm not prepared to sign it right now necessarily. I want
Was
to,
it today?
is it,
Maybe we'll discuss it later. Okay.
I am concerned with,
Well, it was.
I don't like rewarding bad behavior.
No, this was brought up to them when they walked in. This was on my desk. Lee printed it this morning. It had nothing to do with them.
Oh, I know that.
And
No,
I
I'm
told
not
them
saying that
was
from.
on our agenda today. During board pending at 3:05, that was very early in the conversation, so it wasn't. I don't look at it as rewarding bad behavior because it was going to be brought up, regardless if there was anyone here. And they were notified. Okay.
Should we pass that on and let our good treasurer?
We can't.
Well, no, I apologize for making you guys wait. I was watching on the phone. I wasn't sure if you guys were ready for me yet, so you might read down. We are processing away. We're getting ready for second half payments that will start to be coming in here. We're starting to get some of them a little bit, so that's good. We are continuing our office hours 9 a.m. to 4:30. And we are trying to encourage folks to use the drop boxes if possible, just due to all the different things that just eliminate the traffic, but we are open to the public. So that's just a quick thought. The finance committee met on the 10th. It was a fairly short meeting. Dave was via Zoom and Brenda and I were in the chambers. We had a short agenda, but the items on there, we had an update on the Rescue America funding, and there was really no update other than we did get into a bit of a discussion about the second round of the infrastructure and how there's really that's very vague and out there in the cloud and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of rulemaking that will go along with that. And that we're getting through the first. So there was really no updates other than that little piece. We talked about the budget and the budgeting. The meetings were underway. Jen had kind of talked about things. I know that the auditor and myself were very complimentary and appreciate the boards. That we appreciated listening to the way they're set up and the work that Jen has done. I think that came up multiple times, and that Jen's done a very good job of trying to get pieces in front of us to put together a really good budget. And so the auditor and the treasurer passed that along in that meeting, and I would pass it along in this meeting. And the state audit, Brenda is continuing to work on the state audit and working on a potential extension on the single audit, which is due by 9:30. And then we set the next meeting for 9/24 at 9 a.m. It was pretty short and sweet. So that was the main part of that. My office update, we are continuing to work on some pieces to the state audit. That is one thing we're working on in our office. We are continuing. We worked on our budgets, I guess. They're done. Now we're moving on to other things, but that had been something we've been putting work into and looking at other budget numbers to keep going with the current budget. And we are working on beginning to have the second half payments come in. Those are the biggies. It's just standard fare. We're continuing to remain busy with a lot of real estate excises, and those numbers continue to be high. So that is the report. I don't really have anything else super exciting that's happening as we go. Are there any questions?
Yeah, just send an email. Can you print the attachments for me for them? On a side note, I'm just not.
That's
no question.
All have a great day.
Okay.
Superb.
So,
All right. Thank you, sir.
yep, thank you.
part of it from here. I could do that. Right out the
Rob, the prosecutor is on. the board now.
I just love being able to do it.
He was not.
I guess I don't see him, but I will.
Let's do our board pending stuff and
Yeah.
then get in touch with him and see if he wants.
See if he wants to, if he's got anything for us.
So do you want to keep thinking about that? one
No,
while I
I'm just-
continue
I'm-
on to my next board member?
No, okay, I guess.
I'm gonna try to whip through. Which this one's kind of a prosecutor potentially as well. I sent a letter to MRSC about bulletproof vest. Going into the surplus auction and background checks and blah, 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 blah. And we can print this, but they said there is no legal requirement for background checks to be performed in conjunction with the sale of body armor. They also emailed this to the prosecutor because I probably should have asked him this question first. It does prohibit certain felons from purchasing it or owning it, but it doesn't give us any, no, we can't sell it. With that, I would say that we move forward with the surplus of the body armor, or if you want to, we can get a legal opinion from our prosecutor to see if it corresponds with what MRS says.
I'd love to hear what the prosecutor says, but I think you should probably get one for each of us up here first. Before you send it.
Okay, what?
We should get one, a set for each of us up here.
Well, I was thinking, well, by far, if for some reason this doesn't surplus, no, we're gonna take
It'll take two for me.
we're gonna take separation blades and we're gonna glue the rest of them to the front of the cabinet right here.
Okay, there you
All
go.
the ballistic plates are gonna. So is that an official? Let's get a prosecutor official. Then Danny?
Yes.
So you want an official opinion requested?
On whether we can surplus body armor.
What's that body armor or not?
And then Miss Lee, if you could share my screen.
I think you can do that yourself. If you can't, let me know,
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't done it on this iPad.
because
Just
Jake
share
had it all set
content.
up.
What did I do? What?
You've set it up so anybody could share their screen.
Yeah, anybody should be able to share this.
Where's my tabby for that?
Should be at the bottom, well, I don't know.
Yeah, see, I have an iPad, so mine's different. Mine's in the top right, but
Oh, Joey, the green one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Which one is?
okay,
Where?
we're sure. Yeah.
look at that.
What?
So this is our mapping software. We're talking about trailers, used manufactured homes. Yeah. If you look at these properties, well, first off, I will back out a smidge, and this property where I'm moving my hand is the one in question with the trailers in this regard.
Wait, what's just to the left of that?
Oh, you're gonna get there, sir. Let's talk about nuisance compliance. Look at that property. And then we'll snitch forward. Right here, you'll see a trailer. This trailer caught fire years ago. It's a RV. There's tires on the roof. It's another nuisance compliance. Then we'll roll up here to the corner. You'll see this, which is another issue. We won't even go over here across the street. This is all solid waste that gets brought in and recycled here and put on our farm fields. This is the issue we have. Now let's go over here to the left side of this property and look at that fine establishment.
So you're out by Centerville,
This is, yes, Centerville,
Ridge Road.
south of Henridge,
Got it.
across from some prominent
Oh, I didn't know.
ranching community around here. Right now, there is 2 illegal trailers. One is right about here. And one is back here. It might be on the parcel below. They were brought into the county illegally without a placement permit. And are on the property. Here it is. Trailer number 1.
What, are you looking at something different?
It should be shared. Oh, I must.
No,
have
could you share
shared.
that screen?
Oh, I see. So I have to go back to that somehow.
So your screen sharing, go up there.
Yeah.
Click new share. And then you need to share your screen.
Let's try that. I didn't got to do screen share before.
So now it should.
Oh, there you go.
So there's your single wide. If you look closely, you'll see this is all metal siding, rubber roof. Pretty much depicts late 1970s. And if I had the other picture, you'd see where the roof goes.
And there's no replacement permit.
What's that?
Is there a replacement permit
No.
for this?
No. Here you'll see the windows broken out of it. It's a fine establishment. And this is what the people of Centerville are tired of. And you can see the
Is
other.
it being lived in or is it just?
No, it's just waiting for its permit to be put in place.
So there's no placement permit yet, but they may be applying for one. Have you
I
talked to them?
believe they have applied for one. I must have closed that other picture out. Oh, well. The other one, I think, shows the other one back at the back of the property. This is a document I got from Lynn earlier today that tells you what years of the used trailers have been moved in and whatnot over the previous years, like you guys requested the information from her. And that's essentially where we are with that part of it. And I would normally just kind of wait for the board to move along and do what it wants to do and whatnot, but as I've been waiting on potable water for 9 months. And those down there.
What is the 30 to 4 year span on previous report?
I don't know exactly, and when we have plenty of time to get into this. But at this point, I would like to make a motion that we enact a moratorium on the issuance of placement permits for used manufactured / mobile homes older than 10 years old on the date of installation. This moratorium only pertains to used manufactured mobile homes placed outside of established manufactured mobile home parks as per RCW 35.21.684. So I'm asking for a moratorium while we go through all this work to potentially clean up a problem we have.
Okay.
So stop sharing.
Okay, I will second the motion so that we may have discussion.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
So thank you for all the work, Dan, and thank you to Lynn for all the work that she's on. This is a good start. For me, a moratorium is an emergency. It is something that usually has to deal with life security, something very, very serious. I don't know if by passing a moratorium, it will stop old used manufactured homes from showing up. And the reason is because if there's a moratorium, people will just bring them, set them there and wait for the moratorium to expire.
You have to have a placement permit by law to bring it on the property per county regulation.
Yeah, and how many people have placement permits that haven't done it already? So are you actually gonna stop it? See what I'm saying there? Because when it comes up and it's free, you're gonna go get it, you're gonna bring it onto your farm or ranch or wherever at, and you're gonna set it there, and then you ask for your placement permit, you're not gonna walk away from it. There are, 1976 is getting pretty old, but 2 of them were 1976 or older in 2021, one was in 2020, and one in 2019. Are people currently living in those? The people that are living there, are they just renting it? Are they working for one of the farmers? Is this temporary housing? What exactly is this? I need to know those things before I can vote to stop it from happening. If that is what ineffective is affordable housing in Klickitat County, God forbid if I ever voted against affordable housing in Klickitat County. I 100% understand the frustration, where people are coming from. I just need more information. And I don't know if it currently with, the fact that there were 2, 1, 4 in the past
I was hoping that the names of the applicants was actually on this data, and it might explain more.
Well, it does, for me, the names of the applicants doesn't matter.
If you saw it was habitually the same people, is my point.
Okay, this still wouldn't matter to me because I have to look at the entire county, right? And I have to think about the entire county and all the constituents. Kind of like, we try not to make decisions based on who the situation is.
I would agree, because I would feel the same way if somebody was bringing in 40-year-old, 50-year-old trailers in White Salmon as well.
Right. And I don't know about 10 years. 10 years is a arbitrary number. I need to know if there were changes in the fire code, why a 10-year? Okay. Can it be supported? Can we be,
Other counties have 5, I chose 10 because it keeps it at least semi-current with energy efficiencies. That us being a nice, wonderful green county that we are, we should care about energy efficiency.
Is your thought on the moratorium, are you concerned if we go through a typical process that we would to change that there's going to be some rush of folks are going to move a bunch of these in, or is
I think you're going to continue getting and why you or continue to allow people to break the law. Why you take 9 months or longer to discuss potable water, trailers.
just
sometimes you need to take 9 months to discuss.
If we were actually in the planning and debating and information gathering and all of that, going back to the other subject of water, I could fully understand the public hearings and all of that, but when we are no farther today than we were 9 months ago, that's just a roadblock. I don't know that this will get the roadblock, but it is absolutely imperative to residents in Centerville that I represent, so it is absolutely imperative to me.
First off, I have this decision fatigue today.
I understand.
I'm not,
And
I think it will be difficult for me to support the motion as it's today. But that doesn't mean I don't really have a big issue with any of this, honestly. I think I do, as far as I would rather, I don't like moratoriums either. I think we can move fairly swiftly if we're all on the same page as far as I don't think there needs to be a big deal about.
if we had something that said, now like these, I understand these were placed illegally. And just flip your nose to the current law and code. And I understand somebody has to be the last one to get a placement permit.
Right.
So I can fully understand grandfathering to some degree. But now that this is a topic of conversation, I do not put it past some people to buy everyone in the free world and move it onto their property so that they can move it to another property later in their grandfathered in. So I as this is starting to become public knowledge, I want to make sure there's some safeguard in place that they're not going to just bring 20 of them up here at $2,000 a pop and stick them all over their property that is located all over the Centerville Valley.
what are they currently, are most of them being lived in? If you know the people around us. Are they sitting there vacant? Are they, what are these things being used?
I don't know all of them. I've vetted a few out at Starvation Ridge, Eddyville. And you have to be careful they don't fall to the floor. They're used as registration trailers and whatnot on those properties. I don't know what they're used for on the other properties.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm probably saying too much already, huh?
No. I do see that Director Ward is on the Zoom call. I had a technical question. If you're available.
She's probably going, oh, no,
Oh,
I did it again.
No.
I am.
Okay, good. I'm curious, when we're making it, or at least I'm making an assumption that it is illegal to have a single wide or an old manufactured home parked on your place if it's just sitting there. Is that true, or do you?
You aren't supposed to bring it onto site until you've had a permit issued.
That was in the documents I presented last week. You can't bring it into the county until you have a placement permit issued.
You're supposed to obtain your permit first.
Right. But is the I guess the question I'm asking do those structures have potentially other uses than other for habitation, which I need a permit for? Is there any other legal use of an old manufactured home besides habitation?
They can strip
It would have to be decommissioned through Labor and Industries. But when Labor and Industries decommissions it, then it has to fall under the building code. And to use it for any other use, whether it's a house or storage, it's going to have to get engineering to say how it will meet building code.
Okay.
And to answer your previous question,
The answer is no.
The only way to qualify is a 50-year-old home.
Right.
yeah. And you had the other question when I said the 3 to 4 year span for new. That's kind of like buying a car. Like if I get it in 2019, I might be getting a 2018 at the end of the season. I might be getting a 2019, or I might be getting next year's first of the 2020s.
It's still on the car lot as new, even though it's 2 years old.
Correct. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing that we see happen.
I guess I would say I have multiple concerns, from energy efficiency to structure, snow load capabilities, to encouraging, because when you look at these, you don't see the siding on the bottom, you don't see permanent foundation, you find multiple steps and decks not attached, not permitted. I'm just showing you 3 others there. You start to create an ongoing issue of nuisance compliance problems that are around it. And you can call it HUD housing, or you can call it affordable housing, or you can call it slumlord, or you can call it whatever you want. But yeah, no, people in Centerville essentially are very angry. And my main worry with the reason for the moratorium is I feel that it's very potential that at least one entity could bring a bunch of these and load them up just so they're grandfathered. Even though first one of them is a violation.
First of all, if they just bring them in and load them up,
Illegal.
they are gonna be
They're not
illegal, so you
grandfathered.
don't, that's a whole different thing. We don't gotta worry about that. There's no grandfathering of that, okay? If they applied for a bunch of placement permits all at the same time and they were issued, then they would be grandfathered. So that being the case, I'm not super overly concerned. I do think it would be a good idea to have this conversation. And I'm not in favor of the motion because it doesn't hit the level of moratorium for me.
So how about if I do this? How about if I rescind my motion for a moratorium while we try to work through this in an expedited fashion, knowing that I might make the motion again at a future date, but for now I'll pull it off the table.
Are you okay with that second?
Sure.
So then I will rescind my motion.
Okay.
And I would make a commitment that, like I said, I think we can get there right away. I don't have an issue. I do have an issue that I was waffling a little bit on the moratorium. Now that the motion's off the table, it doesn't matter.
Well, I knew that because you were taking my answer.
Yeah.
Facilitate.
because I do have concern about if you're gonna warn everybody that you're gonna take action, they may take action, but then, yeah, they're basically, we've heard, there is no legal purpose for these except and you have to get a placement permit. So you can't move 10 of them in and stack them up and get placement.
As
Those,
long as you're not gonna make 20 exemptions tomorrow or next month or next 6
No.
months from now.
no,
I'm holding you that you won't.
no,
And this one might end up getting permitted based on how fast
right.
Lynn does the permit.
Well, and once
how
they
fast
submit-
well,
and once
gotta
they
have
submit
well,
the
and they gotta have
application.
septic, and they got every other thing.
That there is a, that is, land use
Somebody has to be
process,
the
somebody
last.
has to be the last.
And I'm okay with that as
And-
long as we correct the future.
Right. Okay. Okay,
So,
okay, you got something else?
All
right.
I'm sorry, I'm dragging you guys forever. Hang on. The schedule today said we had radio on the 16th. Is that correct? Our calendar says it's next week.
Oh, the schedule said, I didn't look, but yeah, what?
Our
Let's volunteer
our
that.
agenda said it
Let's-
was
let's-
this week,
Yeah,
and our schedule says it's next week.
next week.
So I want clarification, so I don't miss phone call.
Oh, let me check that.
That's a
Sorry.
good one.
I
Good
should've brought
catch.
that
I
up.
just assumed, I went by the agenda.
I should have brought it up at the beginning. Somehow I got signed out of the criminal justice treatment account panel for 2021. And so I've been facilitating with that and organizing those meetings, not thinking you guys have an objection, but I wanted to bring that up in case you did. I was curious if we had an official county policy on surplus property. I'm sure we do, but I couldn't find it. So I was hoping somebody could
Yeah, we
provide
should.
it with that.
We should have some guidance.
It might be 40 years old.
I think a lot of that, it's actually in your capital.
Okay.
Yes, I will get it for you.
The only thing else I have is I would like the board to see if you guys would be interested in potentially reaching out to Representative Mossberger to discuss the solar tax depreciation rates, to give her enough heads up to possibly present some kind of litigation or, sorry, legislation in the future tax year. I know I'm trying to rush to get ahead of this and not wait till the last minute. If she's willing, are we willing to have her in here or a special meeting or a workshop or any of that kind of fun stuff, whatever.
Yeah, I would support.
I think it'd be a good idea to, yes, reach out, and I think it would also be a good idea to have, talk to David McClure about what he's seeing at the.
Right. I'm thinking it would be a nice little workshop, Krista, Dave.
For us to hang out with her, and you guys to talk
Right.
about what our plans
Other
are.
party. All right, that's, I believe that's all that's on my list. Thank you for your patience on the voice. Okay.
Need to go back in my other. I'm still looking for the. Sorry.
Well, that's the only one of those that are actually deadline important.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not like all on the wrong phone call.
No, I had just emailed them too.
Oh, we still need to discuss whether anybody besides myself wants to sign that one to the governor.
Casey?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you? I'm sorry. I saw you.
I
back there
I forgot
before.
about her. I let her talk before me.
I'm
Yes.
just waiting my turn.
Well,
your
it's your turn.
So you have to make one more decision, though. I know you just
We're done.
stated that you
Yeah,
don't.
no.
want to.
The answer is no then.
So, public health just received a resignation for, and so we're requesting verbal to advertise for the environmental health technician position. It's not exempt for a 37. They want to advertise 1 through 3 and move forward with that.
Yes. I mean, yes.
I don't know enough about their budget at this point in time and to figure out where their grant funding is and how many employees they have and whatnot. And I would prefer myself to wait until I have more pertinent details.
Is it in their budget?
Yes, this has been a
Long-standing
for
position.
years now. It's the environmental health technician, one of the positions underneath the environmental health manager.
Oh, the ones that look at
Department.
potable water.
Yeah.
Those guys.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes. In the
I'm
current
gonna-
budget year.
I'm an abstaining. So you have two yeses and a not voting.
Two's good enough.
Hey, I'm out. Thank you.
Yep. And most of that program is funded from the permit fees, so.
Yeah, I just don't know enough
Yeah.
about it and we've got budget decisions to make. And I also want to know more about why and how. Since we have a minute, I would like to thank our staff for being so awesome in an otherwise difficult day.
I would concur.
I was gonna say, you couldn't even get a second on that, ladies. I don't know.
Well, you didn't make a motion. I'm just.
I don't know if you want a response to it. I want a response to it when it's not recorded. Dan, where did you see the radio that was today?
Blue sheet on the front of the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was on our thing that was this Thursday, I believe.
Okay, I
It was
need,
on
Yeah,
I need to double check in my emails. I can't really.
because I was
see those.
thinking, because I have a board of directors meeting starting at 8, but I will
Got
come
it.
in and do it if we have, yeah, there it was. I knew I saw it. That blue sheet, not this blue sheet.
Yes, it is on the calendar for the 23rd, so I will confirm.
You
that
say it's
when we're done.
usually the third Thursday, I thought. So this one is only the second. if I'm not
Okay.
correct.
We'll figure it out. Could I get some further clarification on the PA opinion you want? I'm having brain fatigue today.
Oh, the legalities of us surplusing
Thank you, sir.
expired body armor and protective chest plates to the general public.
Mr. Chairman, while you keep thinking about that, could we open public comment
Sure.
for a little
Oh,
bit?
yeah, that's-
We'll start with 15 minutes if it's, if anybody wants to. If not, then we'll move on. It doesn't have to be open for 15. If anybody out there that wants to speak.
Yeah.
And they get their usual 3 minutes.
Yes, yeah, so I guess we will open for public comment, although we had lots of public comment earlier. If there's anybody there's nobody in chambers, so if there's anybody in Zoom land that wishes to provide public comment, this is your opportunity.
They did leave a packet that we did not accept. We're gonna take that on Tuesday.
Do we have somebody?
Not that I'm seeing.
If you know.
I will note for the record that Diana, I think it's Diana, I received your email. Yes.
Assuming these go with that petition.
Yeah, it's a new stack, but I told them that
We would-
since we don't know how legal our process was, if they cared, I would leave them sitting there and we would take them in as testimony next week.
Dave, do you want to wait on this?
If there's no difference which way.
Well,
we
I'm
go,
not,
then-
it's, I
It's
don't
the
know.
petition
It's
they
just,
had
I'm- I don't really have
Yeah,
an
just do
issue with
signatures
it, although
'cause they did it.
some of the statements in here are kind of subjective. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I don't. I mean, this was some, you're obviously fine with it. I'm not super, I don't know.
I don't like getting into political statements.
Right, and that's the part I'm having trouble. Like, I don't have any problem with, you know, the emergency's been going on, it's wearing on us, it's been 550 days. I do have it feels like the only reason, okay, there's the trigger. It feels like, that doesn't sound like that sounds like a subjective statement.
Right.
But the only reason to do this is because the executive branch of our government can continue to make decisions without the input of legislators, local elected officials, and communities. You know, there was a legislative session that has taken place during this emergency, and
And I've argued the fact that those legislatures are the ones that gave him the power.
that gave him the power, and they could have. So to say that they didn't have they did have an opportunity. I can say local elected officials and communities, absolutely. I would be fine with, you know, input from local elected officials and communities, but I don't want to get into wordsmithing. That would make me more comfortable. You know, there's no problem. We all want what's best for our communities and state, but the perception is only one person is making all the decisions. I can agree with that there is certainly that perception. As far as we can tell, there's no public plan for ending the state of emergency. It feels like that, but I mean, be part of the solution, the lack of hope. Yeah. I'm not sure what the point of the vaccines are not proven to be 100% effective, and by mandating them, you are fueling the frustration and anger many. I agree with that. By mandating them, you are fueling the frustration and anger many are feeling. Absolutely. And they're not 100% effective, but I'm not sure what
You take
what
it like that?
Yeah, actually, I could do that. Only a little.
And then we wouldn't be sending it as their document. Then
Nope,
we're gonna-
it's our own.
Sending us our.
Dave, do you have a problem with requesting a public meeting?
I think it's other than I think it's window dressing. I think it is, there's not a chance in hell that it's gonna actually happen. And so we're only, it's like, you know, it's like me sending a thing and demanding a in-person meeting with the president. I can certainly make that demand
I said I could assign.
and requesting a response. I mean, or maybe we could say, we request a timely response, but setting a date. You know how we feel when people do that to us, as far as like, yep, I want a response by this. It's like,
But this doesn't start with "I'm your boss," which is what those usually start.
right.
You good with that, Dan?
You live with that?
Like I said, I prefer to sign it the way it is, but in the fairness of teamwork, I'm fine with her deleting those sentences and bringing it back for us to sign.
Okay. I can
We
do
will
that.
have to send it ourselves, I guess.
Commissioners, if you are in agreement, could you at least make a note that you are in agreement? And I'll have this ready for you Thursday. Well, if you don't have it Thursday, never mind.
Do you want a motion?
We usually don't.
If you're agreeing.
If it's a letter, we don't need a motion.
then?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
We're agreed. We're fine.
Good.
Okay.
Anything else? We didn't close public comment.
Oh, all right. Not seeing any more new folks on there. I will close public comment period. And I did send a text to the prosecuting attorney, but I did not.
Yeah,
hear
I
if he
think
was-
because the meeting is the meeting, he's not here.
Right, okay. So I guess we will defer on that.
Are we gonna continue or announce an open public meeting for later today?
So I think I would like the record to show that there were constituents who showed up that did not follow the mask mandating. And there were many of them who were very frustrated and upset about what things are going on. That the chairman removed himself per our agreement of kind of what we were willing to do. And I just wanted the record to show that due to the situation with public safety, I personally decided to stay and listen and let them air their grievances. And I also want the record to show that the Zoom was inadvertently shut down. The staff was not in presence to reopen it, but two commissioners were in chambers. No decisions were made, no county business was conducted, no promises were given. But I stayed because I thought that it was the best decision for the county to let these very upset people listen. And at the
In
end of
the
it,
interest of public safety.
yep, absolutely. It was a lot better than having to push a button.
Well, the button that we tried to push, but wasn't able.
I didn't know that.
Yes, right there. No,
No. What?
we asked the button while he was here. And the button said no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was, so in the interest of public safety, we felt it was best to stop a potential problem.
And I apologize to the chairman for not following his lead and removing myself. But sometimes the best thing you can do is to let people vent in a safe space rather than what it could have become.
We could have gotten it. So I do that.
With that being said, I know that there is a recording of the entire thing that will be posted online. And if we get a copy of that, I would not mind having that posted on the website so that we are very clear and transparent for all that was in attendance. And let it be shown that, and I said at the end of it that you have to show respect, and I wore my mask the entire time through it, except for when it falls down. And but if we have that again, I will follow the chairman's lead and remove myself and conduct the meeting online. I hope that we averted that happening again. And while as easy as it would be to state, we will just do online public meetings from here on out. At this moment, I don't feel that's necessary. If that happens again, I will change my mind, I promise.
I did tell them that I am more than willing to come to their gatherings to hear them vent if they can keep from doing that in our chambers again and possibly disrupting government and official business that has to be done on official times and official days. And they seemed civil and agreed to those terms. So I'm very hopeful that it doesn't happen again on a Tuesday. I don't know if you wanted to state for the record that this meeting could be continued at the next event tonight. It's potential warning or legal. Because I think you can hold an or announce an emergency public meeting because of the civil hostilities.
I would not anticipate, I would certainly hope that if a quorum of the board is present at any other meetings, that they would not be conducting any county business. That just because they're, I mean, we can announce that we may be in attendance at the same event, but that does not mean it's a county meeting that we're going to conduct business. Partly because, I mean, at least for myself, an event, if we're at an event, that's not our event. That is somebody else's event, and they are responsible for ensuring compliance or non-compliant with the whatever rules that the event sets out. Those don't fall to us. If it's if the board is meeting, it's a public meeting.
Right. Well,
And the open public
I
meetings,
didn't, before today, I didn't picture anyone speaking to the crowd other than you, but after today, if one of us are asked a question, it would be nice to give an answer that isn't, sorry, I can't give you an answer because
Right.
it'd be a violation of public meetings act. That's what I'm trying to steer away from.
Right.
If it,
well, my suggestion is if you feel like that's gonna be an issue, you should not attend. Because that would, because again, if we are answering questions and interacting with each other in attendance, a quorum of it, it's a public meeting,
Right.
which we need to keep minutes, we need to keep, it's open to the public, we didn't,
Was not noted.
was not
Right,
noticed,
which would
that's
be the
not,
purpose for the emergency notification now.
It doesn't count now. You need 24 hours.
yeah, even under any circumstance, yeah, you need 24 hours.
Emergency evenings, like that? Yeah, so, I'm aware of that. Okay.
I believe, that sounds right to me.
Yes.
It's
So
24
Jake, your
hours.
answer's no.
No, what?
I mean,
Well, I thought you were the
you
one that
can,
wanted the continuation of the open meeting.
No, I just wanted it noted that we would all be in attendance,
Oh,
that we
okay.
would not be conducting business.
that's right.
Just like we go out to lunch all the time, but we
Right.
don't conduct business.
Right.
Same thing, same.
Right. So, I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's.
That's
it's
fine.
like
I
if
mean,
we're
all it is
attending,
if
it could be on
somebody's-
the record.
If somebody talks
Just
to me in
transparent.
person, I can talk to them. I
Yeah.
just can't answer the crowd.
Exactly. There you go.
Good. Are
And I-
we ready for a motion? Or do we?
One quickie.
Oh, we do have to sign that document still, I think.
I did notice too that we had on here about that you would be participating in the union negotiations.
Right, which.
That
we're
was
not.
removed from the calendar, so that's off.
Okay.
You gonna find out the radio and just let us know
I should,
tomorrow
well,
or
I will
something?
look till we get done.
Okay.
Are we signing this document before we leave
I'm
today?
gonna
or
have
we-
you sign.
Okay. Are you ready for a motion?
I
Anybody else got
am,
anything?
yes.
The longest day ever is about to end. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to adjourn the regular meeting. We have no workshop scheduled this week. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. We're adjourned